Hi, I'm Alice and this is Matilda, who was born 14 weeks ago. I've been using CGM throughout my pregnancy. CGM helped me prepare for my pregnancy because I was able to have a greater knowledge and understanding of my blood sugar levels over a 7-day period. It meant then that I was able to focus on certain time blocks that needed adjusting, and it meant that I had a better HbA1c when I conceived with Matilda. During my first trimester, I found that I suffered from morning sickness and my blood sugar levels were a lot lower. I found the suspension feature was extremely beneficial, as it meant that I didn't have as many low blood sugars because the pump would suspend the insulin prior to the blood sugar, and it also meant that I was able to maintain a hill, not a mountain, when I looked at my blood sugars. I have no warning signs when my blood sugar levels are too high or low, so that was one of the concerns during pregnancy in the first trimester as to the impact that it might have on my unborn baby. By having the suspension feature, I feel that it minimised the amount of low blood sugars that I would have, and also meant that I felt reassured during that first trimester. My top tips for other pregnant people with type 1 diabetes is to use the trend arrows. I found that really beneficial during pregnancy because I was able to intervene before I either had a hyper or hypo. It also meant that I was able to maintain a stable line rather than my blood sugars going all over the place. I also found through having the CGM that I was able to see what was happening with my blood sugars over a 24-hour period and was able to make the changes needed for specific time blocks. Throughout the course of my pregnancy, I was able to make the appropriate changes to my insulin. Obviously, during the first trimester, I needed to reduce my insulin significantly to avoid hypos. During the second trimester, I would probably say was the best trimester from a blood sugar point of view, but I did need to increase it from the first trimester. Based on Matilda being born at 33 weeks gestation, I didn't have much of a third trimester. However, I did notice that I needed to increase my insulin to avoid my blood sugar levels increasing and the impact that would have on my unborn baby. I used the trend arrows and found them extremely beneficial when being able to look at what my blood sugar levels were doing. It meant that I was able to act appropriately, so if my blood sugar levels were increasing and the arrows were pointing upwards, particularly 3 arrows at a time, I knew I was able to intervene by giving insulin before it became too high. Equally, from a low blood sugar point of view, I was able to have a microcarb if I could see that it was dropping to potentially avoid having a low blood sugar. During my pregnancy, I set the alarms for the low blood sugars. This gave me reassurance and confidence, knowing that it would alert me if my blood sugar level was too low. I used the CGM to minimise mealtime highs because I found that over time I was able to see the impact that certain foods had on my blood sugar levels. This meant that I was able to use that information to give my insulin appropriately, either by square bolus, dual bolus, or giving my insulin half an hour before eating. I didn't find that the CGM altered the food that I ate, but I do feel that it made me more aware of how certain foods impact my blood sugar levels. This meant that I was able to give my insulin appropriately and through square bolus, dual bolus, or half an hour before. This meant that I was able to maintain the tight blood glucose levels needed during pregnancy. I found looking at the overall profile of each week's blood sugars really reassuring, and it actually gave me confidence because I knew that I was potentially doing the right thing and I was giving my baby the best possible chance of being born healthy. The help and information I needed from the healthcare team when looking at the download of my blood sugar levels was making the appropriate changes to my insulin for specific time blocks, which meant then that we could maintain the overall tight target that is needed during pregnancy. I also found it beneficial talking to the healthcare team about how certain trimesters would affect my blood sugar levels and the changes that I may need to make to maintain the tight control. Obviously, I knew during the third trimester that my blood sugar levels would probably increase due to insulin resistance, and I would need to quickly increase my insulin. I found the second trimester was probably the best trimester out of them all. I feel that my blood sugar levels started to settle down somewhat. I did need to make some insulin changes and increase my insulin slightly from the first trimester. This was therefore to avoid any highs. CGM helped me make the appropriate changes to my insulin, specifically over certain time blocks. It also gave me the reassurance and confidence that I was doing the right thing and giving Matilda the best possible chance. It also gave me the reassurance from a point of view of low blood sugar levels, because it would alert me or suspend to potentially minimise having a hypo. I was slightly apprehensive about going on a CGM prior to conception. I have had a CGM before, but I don't think that I necessarily trusted it. However, looking back, I don't think I could have got through my pregnancy without it, particularly being able to maintain the tight blood glucose control and knowing that I gave Matilda the best possible chance. Matilda was born at 33 weeks gestation and spent a short period of time on the neonatal intensive care unit. I always knew I wanted to breastfeed and started expressing. Due to the fact that expressing breast milk causes your blood sugar levels to drop, I did find that I was having more hypos. The CGM was really beneficial because it enabled me to be able to target certain time blocks where my blood sugar levels were dropping and make the appropriate changes to my insulin. One of the difficulties I have faced with the CGM is the time difference, in the fact that it lags behind somewhat. This meant that quite often it was saying that my blood sugar wasn't as low as it actually was, or equally it wasn't as high as it actually was. I've found very few difficulties using the CGM since having Matilda. I've found it beneficial, and it gives me the reassurance to know that I'm keeping myself healthy whilst I've also got the responsibility of looking after Matilda. CGM has continued to help me manage my diabetes after pregnancy because I'm more aware of what my blood sugar levels are doing in between finger prick tests. But it's also shown me that once you have a baby, they become your priority, and therefore it gives me the added reassurance and confidence that the CGM is monitoring my blood sugar levels. Overall, the advantages of using CGM in pregnancy are that it's given me a greater understanding of my blood sugar levels over a period of time. It also meant that I was able to maintain a good HbA1c during pregnancy and keep the tight control that is needed. I have found that sometimes the fact that it lags behind means that there's a slight difference in a finger prick test and a CGM reading. Due to the fact that the CGM hasn't always read accurately, I have often backed it up with a finger prick test. The pearls of wisdom I have to share with anybody considering getting pregnant or already pregnant is to try and enjoy being pregnant. It's easier said than done, but quite often your health becomes the main focus. I do find that using the CGM prior to conception meant that I was able to get a really good HbA1c, which was then beneficial throughout my pregnancy as I was able to maintain it. I knew then that this was giving Matilda the best possible chance of being born healthy. Sometimes during pregnancy, it can be draining and demoralising, especially when trying to maintain the tight control that is needed to give your baby the best possible chance. Every finger prick, every CGM insertion and every infusion set is definitely worth it, and Matilda is my little miracle. My advice to healthcare professionals would be that every type 1 diabetic female should be given the opportunity to have the CGM prior to conception, during pregnancy and after pregnancy. I found it extremely beneficial, not only during my pregnancy and prior to conception, but also coming home with Matilda and being a mummy for the first time.